Rob, obviously two sides that have scored loads of tries this season. On paper, at least, it could be potentially a cracking final. Is that how you guys see it as well?
I think if you look at the two semi-finals, you'd be hard-pressed to say that there's not a lot of potential there for a very good final. And indeed, if you, as you say, you look at the form of the two sides, level on points at the end of the season, you know, it kind of couldn't be tighter coming through the actual league stage. As you say, we're the two kind of high point scorers and try scorers in the league. We're both on good form. We both like to play good rugby. So if you talk about potentially good games, it kind of does have everything. Yes.
Does that matter?
Not massively. Obviously, the truth is it's about getting to finals first and foremost, and how you get there is only part of the story. I mean, we like to think that we've got there on merit and having played very well, but the truth is, as with most games in the Premiership, it very much is about who turns up in the right frame of mind, who turns up and is prepared to give as much to the game as is needed to win. And you know, that's what Premiership seasons are built on, and that's what the final's going to be built on as well. You
were there last year. I think it's 9 years since Wasps were last there. How big an advantage do you hope that will prove?
Well, I hope it's going to be an absolutely massive advantage, but I don't think, to be honest with you, I don't think it works like that. I mean, personally, you know, we were in our first ever frontline final last year, and if you actually think back, with 2 or 3 minutes of the game to go, there was a 3-point difference in the team. So as much as I'd like to sit here and go, it'll hold us in good stead, and I do believe it will help. I think experience of those things is very important. You know, Saracens were experienced last year, and it was still a pretty tight game. So we've got to make sure that we don't expect that having a bit of experience from last year will be that big a factor. We've got to demand that what the big factor is the quality we play at, and that's all you can really do as a coach. Guy will be doing the same. You know, he'll be talking to his team, but it's actually about the qualities they show and the things they do on the day that are going to be important. And we've got to drive exactly the same things. That it's how well we play during this week, and it's how well we commit to what we want to do on the day that's going to really matter. And that will be the same for both teams, regardless of any experience.
In your own mind, have you already picked the team?
Yes, pretty much, and obviously we're getting through our training week now, so the group who are going to play have trained the majority of the week together. There's still, as there is any week, there's still a couple of guys who are still, you know, kind of ticking along, but you know, we feel pretty comfortable with where we are. We didn't pick up any new injuries from the weekend, which is good, and a bit unusual for us because we've been picking up a few week by week. So we're actually probably a stronger group going into the final than we were last week, which is always nice.
So one or two possibly back in contention?
Yeah, well, obviously what's happening is there's guys who were recovering from injury over the last week or two. They're spending more and more time now back on the training field. So, and as I said, as we didn't pick up any fresh injuries, you know, there's just a larger playing group who've just had more time training and more times returning from injury.
Thank you very much.
After the match last week, you spoke about perhaps last year you weren't as disappointed as you perhaps might have expected to lose the final. And Gareth Steenson said on Saturday that even in the changing room straight after Saracens it was a different mindset. Have you noticed that amongst the players in training this week?
Yeah, I think Gareth was right. I think it did feel different straight after the game. Obviously the way we won the game and the amount of energy and emotion we had to put into the game to beat Saracens was a key factor immediately after the whistle. But as Gareth said, by the time the guys had got into the changing rooms, it did feel a little bit different. It didn't feel like we'd achieved everything we wanted to this season by winning that semi and getting to the final. But that said, as I've just said now, that's only a feeling, and feelings, as good as they are, they have to be backed up by actual actions, and that's what we have to make sure we do. That the training week this week is good, that we tick the boxes we need to, massively, that we get ourselves physically ready for another very, very big game of rugby. You know, Wasps aren't there by chance. They've had a very good season. They've beaten some very good teams to get there. They've had to come through some emotional battles as well, and they'll be well set for the final. So it's going to be a fantastic challenge for us. But that's what final should be about. That's what the semi-final should have been about. The semi-final should have been a game like it was. You know, a team that have just won the European Cup and a team that have just gone as long as we have unbeaten in the Premiership. It should have been that kind of a game, and it was. And we've got to make sure that we prepare in exactly the same manner, and we're prepared to commit to the game in exactly the same way. And as long as we tick those boxes, you know, I'll be very happy. You know, the key for me is that we go out there and we perform at the level we can as a club. You know, that's what's the important thing for us to prepare for as coaches.
And as Thomas said, and you just sort of reiterated as well, that the experience from last year, just even the simple things, Thomas saying, maybe get to the ground a little bit earlier, knowing where everything is, and getting out on the pitch and that atmosphere, might just give you a little bit of an edge, you would hope?
Yeah, well, that's what we've got to hope for. I mean, the reason that you work very hard to get into the top 4 in the Premiership and get into semi-finals and get into finals is obviously you want to win things, but you want to experience big things as a team together, and you want to experience new things. And the reason you do that is because hopefully it makes you a better player and it makes you better prepared. And we've got to hope that we're a little bit better prepared. As you say, there's a few little things we can tweak. Because we hadn't been to the ground before as a club in such a big game, and we've tweaked those, but those are the things that you tweak season by season anyhow, depending on experiences you get at the away games. So nothing's dramatically changed for us. We've done a lot of very good preparation work. As I said, as Thomas said, there's a little couple of things. We got held up in a fair bit of crowd going into the ground last year, which was a fantastic experience, but also did cost us a little bit of preparation time. We can tick those boxes off very easily, and obviously it'd be remiss of us not to do that. But as I said, on the whole, it's more about just getting the guys to leave. We've got to make sure we leave the semi-final behind. The big thing is with a semi-final that was that good a game and was won in such a manner and was such a thriller for everybody who was there. Sometimes it gets hard to leave it behind. You get into this stage of the week. It's a Wednesday now, and people are still wanting to talk about last week. And actually, you've got to move on. It's not about the semi-final anymore. It's about the final. And the important thing for me is, as a group of players and as a group of staff and as a club, we move on beyond what was a really important game of rugby. But it's gone now, and now it's about Saturday.
Well, you talked about having to try and bring the squad down after the highs of last weekend. How pleased were you watching the Wasps-Leicester game to see Wasps have to go through the same thing that you guys did? To
be honest, it's like anything. The interesting thing was, and myself, like the other coaches, we had 2 folders on our laptops, which were, one was mine were listed as Wasps final preparation, Leicester final preparation. It was the last 3 games of both teams, and the one game that was going to get added into those folders was the semi-final, and we go one way or the other. And actually, I'd probably done equal amount of work on Leicester as I had on Wasps. So I was sat there, and I actually left and got away pretty early, so the game hadn't finished before I got home. So it was interesting to see how it panned out as I got back. And as I say, we added the one game. We've done a bit of extra work. Was I delighted to see it was a real humdinger of a game? In a way, I suppose, because you want it to be an emotional and physical test for whichever team you're visiting. But the truth is, and I think 3 of the 4 teams involved in the semi-finals had 2 weeks for those games, and they were of a massively high standard. There was a massive amount of physicality and a massive amount of energy. It'll be a slightly different challenge this week because, as you say, Wasps have had a tough fixture, we've had a tough fixture, and I think how we prepare this week will obviously be a little bit slightly different. You have to trim the weekend down, you have to trim your training week down a little bit, probably have to be prepared to focus a little bit more on yourself than the work you can do on the opposition because you've a little bit shorter time, and that in itself can make it a more interesting game. And often it means it's the battle of yourselves over, it's more of a battle of what can you achieve yourself more than what you can stop of the opposition, and that's very much how we're approaching it. We've talked this week about what we want to achieve ourselves. We haven't talked too much about trying to stop Wasps doing what they do, because we actually think if we play our game, we deal with a lot of that anyway. And as I said, our focus has been very much on ourselves and what we want to achieve on Saturday. Wasps will be doing exactly the same. I think their comments are already saying that, and we'll see who can do the best job of that on Saturday.
Given that you put Saracens away last weekend, do you think you go to Twickenham now as favourites? Are people expecting you to become champions?
Well, the bookies don't say so, do they? Not that I ever look at that kind of thing. I don't know. I think most people have it pinned down as a pretty even contest. And I think, listen, if you think of over 22 games of a regular season, we both scored exactly the same amount of points. There's not a lot to choose between us. I'd like to say I'm confident we'll play well, but that's because I know the characteristics of the players we've got here. Dai Young will probably say exactly the same. As I said before, I think a lot of it will come down to the team that really hits the pitch in exactly the right frame of mind on the day. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that's us. But as I said, we're going to try and make it about Exeter. Wasps will try and make it about Wasps, and it is going to come down to who can do the best job at that.
Ross, I think the weather, 26, 27 degrees, which isn't normal, necessarily, maybe, but does that change anything for you guys? Or you don't mind too much?
But you live down this part of the world. 26, 27 degrees is nothing unusual. Most of the boys are a little concerned in the temperature drop-off that there's going to be. Especially the lads who are a little more Cornish. But we think we'll deal with the weather fine. Listen, you know, it's going to be warm. It's going to be a fantastic day. Those are all just things that will make it an even better occasion. You know, most professional teams are well versed in how you need to deal with slightly adverse weather conditions. For us, I mean, it's been a beautiful day today. We've been out there training full on. The boys haven't worried too much about the temperatures. We've had some high temperatures here for on and off for the last month, 6 weeks. So for me, it's not going to be a huge issue. Will we deal with it professionally? Will we have everything ready that we can? We will. But it's not something that we're spending hours and hours and hours worrying about. Yeah.
And how conscious are you going to Twickenham that you're not just representing the club and Exeter town, but Devon and Cornwall, the real southwest there?
I think the truth is, as a club, I think that's a little bit in our DNA, that we think we're representing a really strong rugby environment down here. But the truth is, that's not really what I want the players either worrying about or focusing on. You know, I genuinely want them focusing on themselves and what they want to achieve as individuals and what they want to achieve as a team. You know, they've worked exceptionally hard to get to this point. Probably after quite a lot of people were doubting them after 6 or 7 rounds of the Premiership. And you know, if there's a group of players whose hard work and dedication and desire to do something merits them coming away with something that they can talk about as a group for possibly the rest of their lives, whatever, then I think that's what's important. I think it's important they do it for themselves and they do it for themselves as a team. The representation is something that we do on a day-by-day basis, and we've been doing that for years now in the Premiership. This is a special day for them, I would like to say.